I always tell them, if your presence doesn't make an impact, then your absence doesn't make a difference.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we're joined by the Director of Performance Course, Stephen Baca. Coach Baca has been with Performance Course since 2009 and currently serves as the coordinator for programs in Coppell and Highland Park ISD. Prior to that, I had the pleasure of working with Coach Baca at McKinney High School, and after playing pickup with him multiple times, I can honestly say he's as talented a basketball player as he is a coach. Coach Baca is also the Director of Youth Programming and key architect of the PC Leadership Academy. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. What's up, Coach?
Man, not a lot. How you doing, brother?
Good. You look good. You look darn good.
I appreciate it. You as well.
Well, yeah. Man, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for, I know this time of year is nuts for you with Performance Course and all the training and things that you do and getting things ready for the summer. So I really do appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. I've known you since the very beginning of my career, the very first year. And so anything
I was going to say, how long has it been?
14 years.
Golly, 14 years. You can still hoop, can't you?
I played this morning, Coach. I played this morning.
It's incredible.
I tell stories about you, and when I talk to guys, I say, because guys who know you, I say, hey, anytime we played at McKinney High back in the day, you know, Coach Samuel would only play a few times, but when he played,
there's only one speed.
He made you remember.
Yeah, the shoulder to the mouth. But it's my only move. I can't vertically out jump you, so I have to horizontally just get into your body.
We got to stick to what we do really well. God's given us some gifts, and we got to own them. And I can't get outside of the skill set. You know, I got to stay within it.
You know, it's special for me to get to have you on. One, knowing you for 14 years now, you're probably one of the most energetic but inspirational leaders that I've been able to be around, and I mean that. But also with what you guys do from Performance Course. PC is not a sponsor of the podcast, but I'll just say But I'll just say you got the program that you run. It's transformational, and at McKinney, that's where I was able to meet you when working for Wes Watson. I saw what it was able to do for our guys there, and then moving to Grapevine Faith. It took a few years for me to have, I guess, the sway or whatever here to be able to bring you guys in. But I'm just saying, we brought you in, we made it to the state semifinals, the longest run we've ever had. And then we've kept you here at Faith, and the success has been sustained. And I really believe you guys are a big part of that.
Well, man, I appreciate you saying that. I know that, we would be nothing without the coaches that support us. And it's like I tell people individually, we know our role, and we know that we're not the ones that are going to get the newspaper clippings. We're not the ones that are going to get interviewed. And that's exactly fine with us. We have a small role. And what I love about us, and it set the example from Gino, our CEO, Gino Pierce, is the humility that he's taught all of us to have, is that you're not going to see us go tweet and say, look at all these people we made. Look at these teams that we made, because we know there's a coach behind the scenes all the time, and he's coaching them the other 42 weeks out of the year. We understand that we have a role that's small and albeit in our minds extremely integral. But I love the fact that Gino has really taught me, and we'll get into things I've learned. I know that's a question we talked about, but one of the things he's taught us is to realize that we have a part, but we are not the part. And letting coaches know, just like yourself, that we are going to come in not to steal the show, but to give to it, to supplement, right? And we know that our role is small, but we also know that our role is valuable. And so just as valuable as we feel that role to be, we show up with that same inspiration that this is needed. We are needed. No one can do what we can do. We believe that. But we also know And we're not foolish enough to think that just because we work with a team means that they're successful because of us. And I love that Gino sets the example on that. And I love kind of letting our success, so to speak for itself rather than be something that we put out there and say, look at all these teams and et cetera. So I appreciate you saying those things, but I also love, the fact that we know we're a small part of the role and that you guys are doing the main work. We love coming aside and being great at the role that we have.
You guys do a great job of that, and even on social media, and that's a place where there is so much self-promotion, and I could see easily a group like yours, a company like yours, starting to almost as if taking credit for the success of teams. And I love the fact that you don't do that, but you do a great job of celebrating, the individual players that maybe that week were killing it or did something really special. Just real quick before we get into, I love the questions that you chose. What is something that coaches, like, let's just say you're somehow in the DFW, you either haven't heard a performance course or you're thinking of bringing PC in, just what can they expect? What does it look like?
Well, from the first thing that we like to make sure people know about us is that we use strength and conditioning as a vehicle to promote hard work, culture, and teamwork. And that anybody can go online and find movements, find exercises, and you may not be as good at cueing that or as good at making it, but you can do a workout anywhere.
Right.
And so we're not coming in to be a great workout, albeit we do believe that our program is second to none. We believe that. But the bigger part of what we do is we contribute to the culture, and we are really, really good at making everybody feel their value to the collective and then helping them maximize that value, right? So then you got a guy that maybe, last off the bench. Well, at performance course, he's a star because of his effort. Right? He may not get recognized in his performance, but because of the things he does and the intangibles from a character perspective at performance course, he's a winner. And so for us, I think the biggest things coaches can expect is, for us to make each and every player excited about being there, not because of what they can do on the field or on the court, but because of what they contribute with the things that they can control. And I think that creates a wildfire of excitement, a wildfire of full intention behind the work. Because when you feel valuable, you're so much more likely to give, right? When you feel like you're not really have a role on this team, you're just kind of the end of the bench, you're not going to show up with an excitement level. So the main thing we want coaches who don't know anything about us to know is that, number one, we're not there to take your success or take your program. Number two, we're there to be your biggest support in terms of your culture. And we feel like we're really good at establishing that culture because we've done it for the last 20 years, 2 decades of doing that. So those are things I'd say that I really would love people to know about us.
I've been able to sit in the gym with you on day one of starting our fall workouts, where you come in and you actually talk to our players about what they're about to go through. You set the tone, you set the culture. And I remember feeling like a player again, wanting to go work out and getting so jazzed up myself. I think there's a lot of freedom in it. This it's not a commercial for PC, but if coaches are interested in letting go of the strength and development piece on your team, because I playing in college, working out myself, you nailed it. I can look up or I can ask people, like, the Baylor strength coach can send me a workout to take our guys through, and it's going to be better than nothing. It's going to be okay. But I think all of us as coaches are looking for excellence in our training and our programs. To me, this is the next step in excellence.
And I really appreciate those words, because I feel that way, that we are really good at what we do, but we also are really good at staying in the lane of what we do, right? You are great at creating skills in basketball players. I am not great at that. I want to go through your skills program and learn so I can be better in my adult morning programs. But, just like you mentioned at the very beginning of this about the elbow, and that's your one move. We have one move, and that is creating culture, teamwork, and athletes that develops those people as athletes, teammates, and people. And we are really, really good at that one move. And we're confident in that. But we also know that one move is one of the many moves that a team needs to have collectively. But we love the fact that we get to have that role and be really excellent in that. So it's just like you said, bringing us in only works to contribute to the culture that you want, that you have. We want to use your terminology, right? But we also want to be excellent at the things that we love. And I'm not a great basketball coach, but I know how to make basketball players be really good to help your skills. That's the sort of thing we like to think about.
Yeah, you can hoop though, so don't sell yourself short.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game.
How old are you now, Coach?
I turned 35 2 weeks ago.
There's no way you're 35. No way. Because that means
21, 22 when you met me.
That means that I'm 40 now. So we're both getting older, but you still are really active. Like you mentioned earlier, playing this morning. What are some daily habits that not just set you up for physical success, but also to be the leader that you are and to have so much energy throughout the day?
For me, productivity spurs on productivity. And one of the things that I want to do, the very first thing I get out of bed, is I want to accomplish a task. And that could be for me, depending on my schedule, is different every day. But that could be for me, reading my Bible in the morning and making sure I'm taking a step to set my mind up for the day, making sure it's not about me, but it's about what I can do through what I've been given to help people around me. And I think, side note, I think people sometimes think humility is for the weak and timid people. But for me, humility is knowing that God has given me a unique talent, but I am extremely confident in that talent that I do have.
Yeah, without him, that talent's not there, but
correct.
You have it. Yeah.
But I have it, and I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I want to use it because I know I'm good at it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think we get that misconstrued that we have to be this mild-mannered person that can't be confident. That's not the case. But humility is understanding where that confidence comes from, right? And so resetting my mind every morning and being in my word, that's number one. But just finding a way to, whether it's me early morning working out, finding a way to accomplish one small task. And I always say, if you can just get there, right? So if I'm waking up in the morning and I'm going to get in front of my computer and start my work, if I'm going to get to the gym, to the weight room early, and I'm going to get on the bar, my hands on the bar, if I'm going to get my hands in the Bible, if I can just get to the place that I'm going to do the task, everything else will snowball. So the things that create productivity are making that first step. Daily habits for me are saying, how can I find a way to just get there to where I need to be? Because as much as you say, Coach Baca, you're inspirational. Okay, I love that. I appreciate that, but I'm also human. And I also wake up and think, I want to sleep in. I don't want to work out. I don't want to go be motivational. I don't want to go be in front of kids. I'm a human too. And to combat the thought of whatever I'm bringing that morning, whatever I'm bringing in baggage in my own life that I wake up with, if I can just show up to the place I need to be in terms of being productive, whether that's in front of my Bible, whether that's in the weight room, whether that's in the book I'm reading, whatever it is, if I can show up just to do the first thing, that productivity spurs on productivity. And for me, feeling I accomplished that one task, it makes the world a difference where, I have 2 young kids, so I don't really sleep in anymore, but I never really did to begin with. But on days that I used to have time and I'd say, you know what, I'm just going to have this day sleeping a little bit more. Not to say that you can't do that, but for me personally, I would find myself missing that first task, and that miss would snowball into hours of missed productivity. And then the whole day you're like, well, I haven't really done it. And it goes one of two ways. You wake up and you snowball towards productivity, or you snowball in laziness. And I'm no different than anybody else. If I don't have that first moment to attack, and I know I'm not motivated enough to have that first moment unless I just think about showing up. So to answer your question, just making an effort and intention to show up to the task that is first at hand, and then do the first thing necessary to accomplish it, snowballs for me in terms of being great that day.
It's so good. And part of the reason why that question is on the list is because, one, I think the majority of coaches out there are high achievers. They're highly motivated. But I think it's important that we are mirroring the habits that we want our players to have. I think I've been guilty of at times not being very productive, but then showing up in front of my players and talking to them about maximizing their time. So if I get here in the weight room in the mornings with them, but I'm not actively doing something to better myself, but they are right in front of me, in a way, I'm not living out the words that I'm saying. So I love the fact that you chose it. Not a lot of coaches do, for whatever reason, to answer that question. But I gotta wonder how many of us, the longer we do this, our personal habits start to get worse and worse, even though we're still trying to hold other people to a high standard.
Yeah, I think that's a huge hurdle to cross for yourself. And I chose that because I can have the equivalent mindset when I wake up. But if I don't have a strategy in the terms of showing up, I'm no different than anybody else in terms of being unproductive, lazy, choosing easy. I always tell athletes, if you're given a choice between easy and difficult, every human that ever existed is going to choose easy, right? We're created, our bodies, the way our body works is to always seek the middle, right? We're not created to go stress ourselves. So for me, having a daily habit, I know that there are days I wake up and I don't want to do a dang thing, right? And I remember to myself, I don't need to do anything. I just need to get in the car, drive to the weight room, put my shoes on.
Yeah.
Let me just, if I can do that, and then I'll warm up, do the first exercise, and then I'll do the first movement. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm like, man, there's nothing better, right?
You rarely are mad that you actually did the workout after the fact.
But if your mindset is, man, I got this giant list today to accomplish, I don't even want to get out of bed. You got to remind yourself to reduce all of that to just doing the first thing. Can I get in the car, put my hands on the wheel, and from there, I'll take that next step, right? And I think it's a great example for us. If we're going to ask young athletes to hold themselves to a high standard, we believe the reason we're asking them that is because that benefits their future. We have to believe that within our own self. Right? We don't just ask them to be great for the sake of being great. We all, at least for me, I always tell to them, you're using basketball, training, whatever it is, to create foundational habits that will stick with you far past basketball. And I want to be the reason that I believe that, to say, man, I want to be a better husband in the future. I want to be a better father when my kids get older. I want to be better for my company as I get older. The same things I preach to them, I have to believe. And part of that belief means I'm doing it. And if I'm not doing it, I can't sell it very well. People say, Coach Buck, you're a good salesman. I'm really not. I just believe highly in the product. And when I believe what I say, it means I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think kids can, that authenticity, they can feel that. They can feel when you're being real with them. You can feel when you're putting on an act. And so all the way through, us believing in our offensive, defensive philosophies, all the way down to the daily habits we're trying to get them to do. I think it has to be real to us.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
So we talked a little bit about performance course already, and to me, it's not just strength training, and it's not just coaches coming in, working out your kids, and they're gone. It's an experience, and I've seen the culture build and enhance our own culture from it. What are some of the standards and pillars of your program?
You know, we have 6 character traits that we talk about in terms of developing the people that we want to develop. And it's belief, leadership, attitude, consistency, effort, and desire. The pillars of our program are going to be that as we get better athletically, as we get better as teammates, as we get better as people, it is looped in the foundation of being people that believe in each other and believe in ourselves, of establishing young leaders who are unafraid to hold people accountable, because they know that's the way that you love and care about people the most, is by helping them become better and then letting yourself be accountable to the standard that you just held somebody else to. having a great attitude, and laying the foundation to understand that life is going to throw things at you, but circumstances we can't control, but we are in control of our reaction to them, of our attitude. Consistency, right? We just talked about daily habits, waking up and being able to say, you know what, I'm going to be great at the things that I do all the time, the boring. And we'll get into kind of like, I know I had a question about programming and different things in a minute, and we'll get into like embracing being good at the boring, but that is what we tell our kids. We're going to be consistent. It's sometimes not fun to wake up and say, I've worked out, or I've read the Bible, or I've done this 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. I don't want to do it today, but that's the consistency and the pillars that we're looking to train young athletes, because as I know, man, my 2-year-old could care less about my feelings when I'm trying to parent him. He needs consistency from me, so I better be exhibiting that in my own personal life. And then there's effort behind what we do, right? We want to be people that give great effort, because effort is something that you don't just give up for yourself, but you give for a collective. When I give effort, it affects people, it helps people. So I'm not thinking in terms of me, but I'm giving what I can bring to the table. And then desire means an intention that comes from within. And so for us, those standards and pillars of our program are the way we weave our program. It's the way we write the exercises. It's how we think about how we're going to run. It's how we think about how we're going to lift. It's how we think about how we're going to talk to kids, how we're going to behave ourselves, what we're going to show up like, how we're going to be professional in terms of being there on time, having a plan. All of those things are rooted in belief, leadership, attitude, consistency, effort, and desire.
I think some coaches might, if there's an absence of culture in their program, if they don't have pillars, if they don't have a way that they show up every day, which that's what culture is, then this will help huge, because it'll give a foundation for them the rest of their season. But then I think there could be other coaches out there like, well, we have a culture. We have 6 words that we live by. But there's no, I don't think there's a need to worry as far as having too much culture or ideas that, I mean, all 6 of our traits, all 6 of your traits, they're moving in the same direction. And I've also seen too, the value in having a different voice say something very similar, to where even in their own minds, whether they know it or not, there's dots that are connecting. I just think they flow together really well.
100%. And you know, those are things in terms of character that we also will touch on. The specific culture of a program, whatever that slogan is, we will reinforce that. But those are things for us that, you know, at the end of the day, when I show up and I have to answer for those kids that are in front of me, I want to walk away, regardless of anything else that's given to me from the coach. I want to walk away knowing I held my end of the bargain, not just with that coach that I'm working for, but with the man that created me and gave me the gifts, you know, God himself. I want to walk away knowing if I instill these 6 things in these young men, and I use this difficult experience to mold those 6 things, I can walk away regardless of the outcome and know that I did my part, right? Yeah. And sometimes that means that, you know, it succeeds in terms of wins and losses. Sometimes it doesn't. But I know for the value of the human being that is within our program, they're going to be better because of it, regardless of on or off field success. And a lot of times it does translate to on field success, on court success. But even when you have culture, when you're preaching things that are bigger than the sport, you never lose, in my opinion.
Yeah. If we're talking about daily growth and improvement, I think that word consistency is so huge. I don't care what area you're talking, nutrition, you're talking about your faith, or just reading books in general and accumulating more knowledge. You're talking about shooting, becoming a better shooter. I just don't know how you do it without consistency, getting in the gym.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train, and more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com.
I'm going to jump a little bit ahead to one of the questions is how do we use performance course in the fall. I wish it could be all year long, but that's just what we're able to do here. But during the season and even during the spring right now, I'm in control of the workouts. I'm there with them in the gym, and consistency in the weight room, especially let's talk about basketball players. I think we're getting past the point of basketball players not thinking the weight room is important anymore. I think they've seen enough videos out there and heard enough things, but there is still this resistance and maybe a lack of consistency. How can high school coaches get players more excited about weight room training? What are some tips or strategies?
That's a great question. I think it's a question that, not just high school coaches face, strength coaches face that as well, all sports, especially when, there is no brilliant, I have this secret recipe of how to train kids that nobody else knows. Our program, you look at we're going to squat, we're going to push, we're going to pull, we're going to hinge, we're going to change direction, we're going to sprint. Are we groundbreaking in how we do that? Are we creating something that no one else knows? No. So I think two things. Number one, I think you have to be able to sell to the kids. In order to sell something, you have to know yourself, but you have to sell to them the purpose behind every single movement. Why doing this makes you a better basketball player. And if we don't understand why doing something makes you a better basketball player, take it out of the program, right? And that's not to say that you have to be a certified strength and conditioning coach as a basketball coach to train your kids in the year. What that means is get around some people who can help you say, let me connect the dots between why is this movement important? Why is it something we do all the time? Well, let's talk about how, for instance, we're doing RDLs. Coach, man, we do RDL, we do hamstring work all the time. Why? Well, if you understand deceleration, if you understand eccentrics, what happens are you have this great force to create power vertically, but you can't land. You got great speed, but you can't stop. And if we can get you better on the backside, we can work on landing mechanics, deceleration, and posterior chain strength, we can help you stop quicker. We can help you land safer. Now, I, as an athlete, am so much more excited about doing a movement that I can think and say, I know exactly why I'm doing this. We've all been in places where we're doing something without really a purpose. Maybe there is a purpose, but it hasn't been explained to us in a way where we buy into it and say, okay, that makes sense. The number one way to help them get excited is to give each movement purpose and explanation to where they have to be able to say, we're doing this because of this. Boom, I'm bought in. Outside of that, step number two would be reminding them what their specific role on the team is. And this is not just excitement in terms of strength conditioning of the weight room. So I'm going to answer your question broad, but it does involve that. I give this analogy that in this morning group I play with, 5:30 a.m., I open the gym. Okay. I'm not the best basketball player there. I'm not the most athletic. I don't jump the highest. I'm definitely not the tallest. But guess how valuable my role is? You can't play without me. So you know how many times I have missed that 5:30 call in the last 4 years? Zero. Not because I'm an elite human. I love waking up at 4:45, but because if I don't bring my role, nobody plays. And so if I can continue to navigate with each and every athlete, and I can carve out and help them not only assign them a role, but help them with what their role is. And I'm not speaking in terms of just, okay, you're the shooter. Okay, you're our defensive specialist. I'm talking about what are you bringing to this group that is unique to you that nobody else can bring? And the more I tap into that uniqueness, the more they'll realize that if I don't show up, I'm robbing the team of my uniqueness. And I tell people this, no one is better at being Stephen Baca than Stephen Baca. That's not to say I'm great, better than anybody else. No one's better at being me than me. And I know the unique roles that I have. So when I show up, kids are always like, "Do you drink a lot of coffee?" No. But I know that if I don't show up, nobody has the role that I have and no one else can give it. That means there's going to be a void.
Yeah.
So I'm going to help them understand purpose behind every movement, but I'm also going to work on helping them create, now, what are you bringing? Not in terms of your skill. What are you adding to this group that is unique to you, that if you were gone, nobody else will be able to fill? And so I always tell them, if your presence doesn't make an impact, then your absence doesn't make a difference, right? And I want them to understand that their presence does make an impact regardless of where you are on the depth chart. You can be the 15th guy that doesn't touch the floor, but your presence makes an impact because you bring something no one else does. You tap into something that is purposeful. I always say this, people say, oh, you're motivational. I'm glad. I want to be motivational. Motivation is deceptive, right? You can be excited when I talk, but in an hour, you're going to be less excited. Motivations only serve to tap into reminding you how to be consistent with your purpose that you believe you have. We help them understand why the movements exist and then their role that they bring that is unique, that no one else can bring. It makes an excitement for waking up and saying, oh, I can't wait to show up to work out because nobody can bring what I bring. I got the keys. No one's open and playing this gym unless I show up. So those are the two reasons I think or ways to get better at that.
I want to unpack the first one because I think a part of the fun part of coaching is we have to keep evolving and changing as the times do. And there was a time, and I don't know if you were this way when you were a player. I was. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll just attack it. In fact, in college, I didn't really like having a partner, and maybe this is selfish. This was something, but I really didn't want even, not that I didn't want to be coached. Coach, do you have the workout for me? I'm good. I'm going to kill it. And I didn't need to know why. But I think today's students do need to know why. They want to know. I mean, in the classroom, they want to know. They have everything at their phone. They have answers quickly to almost any question they could ever have. So for us just to say, just do it because it's there, man, there's a disconnect. So I think that's a huge shift and great reminder that you gave right there.
Man, yeah, I think that goes the way for all of us. None of us like to do something that's purposeless. None of us like to exist just for the sake of existing, even though sometimes our unproductivity, go back earlier, sometimes that can create a pool of just existence. None of us feel satisfied just existing. I don't care what anyone tells you. The more you can tap into purpose, right? The more that you can tap in unique purpose for weight room movement and transfer, there are so many reasons why basketball players need to lift. And every exercise has a specific role that has a specific transfer. And you know, I think the more we can understand that, and that's was calling one of us at PC and saying, hey, we don't even use you guys, but just could you explain to me for 30 minutes on a conversation some of these movements and why they would transfer? We're doing deadlift. Should we even be doing that? We're squatting. Or what's the purpose? Hey, let's back up. I would love to facilitate that. Yeah. So, you know, it doesn't even have to be a program that uses us, but just to find somebody that can help reinforce the purpose so that you can just say, well, I'm glad I know myself because I'm writing the thing and I want to make sure that what I'm putting in is things that can transfer. And if I can't explain that, I need to throw it out of the movement. That goes for how you write programs and the same for how I write them.
The second thing that you said that I really liked and a light bulb moment for me, because players miss weights. We lift before school right now, and it is purely optional. I can't coach them before school. I can't mandate that they're there. And we use second period athletics for skill in basketball. And so I'm there, like you said, my role, I open the gym and I never miss or I make sure somebody's there. But I didn't think about them missing because they may not value their role that much. They may not actually think. Sometimes they miss because they wanted to sleep in. They're a really good player. Maybe they're lazy. Maybe they don't. That's all true. But there may be guys that truly don't think that if they're not there, that it doesn't matter. And I think that's my fault. I gotta, as a coach, make sure that each of them understand. Coach Drew talked about if we're playing tug of war and it's 5-on-5 and one guy doesn't show up, we lose. Like everybody's really important, or 12-on-12, everybody's really important. But I think that's a way to maybe approach why we need everybody there, because everybody does matter. And I think I've missed the boat on that.
I think for me, that is the thing that unlocks my excitement is when I feel like I have value, number one, and people need to experience the value I have in order to impact them. And I need them to bring their value so that I can be impacted. And if I'm giving everything I got to impact you, I want you to show up to give everything you got to impact me. And so I've kind of developed this purpose formula because we tell athletes, find your purpose, find your unique role. It's really hard for them to do that, because what that takes is taking some time away, disconnecting, thinking, processing, man, what is it that I do good? So I kind of developed this formula that I wanted to share that makes it a little bit easier. It's taking something you're naturally attracted to or drawn to, like you find entertaining, combining that with something that you're naturally good at. I always explain, if I'm naturally drawn to golf, I'm a terrible golfer. That's a hobby. That's not my purpose, right? So I'm naturally drawn to being around young kids, to being around leadership environments, to being around hardworking team cultures. I'm naturally drawn to that. That makes me feel alive. I'm also naturally good at bringing an energy level that God gave me that I just know is part of me. I'm also naturally good at using that to create better people around me. I use those two things to combine to make people's lives better. That is my purpose. What are you naturally drawn to? How do you combine that with something you're also naturally good at? And how can you use the collective of those two things to make people's life better? Maybe you're the guy that plays good music on the team. I got all the playlists. I play the best stuff. If you don't show up, man, that we lack a certain energy because you didn't show up being the playlist. Maybe you're a guy who knows how to spot and encourage a way that nobody else does. You are such a good encourager. Maybe you're a guy that knows how to reinforce coaching cues that coach gave. Maybe we all have these little unique niches that we're good at, and every person on everybody's team has them. The more you help them understand how to develop their own and assign them those things, the more they'll feel, I cannot wait to give up. I cannot wait to be there in the morning and get up, because if I don't, there's something missing. They need me. People love to feel needed. And the fact is we are. And so if you can help them understand their need and then the role that they can fill with that need, you've unlocked excitement that you'll never be able to match.
Man, I'm trying to think. I'm just thinking of a couple kids that just might have a really hard time believing that, maybe they're a sophomore and they play JV and they look ahead of how many guys are ahead of them, and they're naturally quiet, and they're not outgoing, and they just like to fly under the radar. But I think that's a part of it too, of maybe the art of it is how can we unlock something a little bit deeper in them. And I'm thinking more of the examples again of where I probably haven't been as purposeful as I need to be. And so I think it's a great reminder that you gave.
Yeah, 100%. And just to touch on that kid who isn't the loudest, you help him understand, what if everybody was like Coach Baca? What if everybody was the one talking, the one trying to be in charge, and say, we wouldn't
chaos.
You remind them, man, the person that is listening, that's put in it, that's quiet, he has a unique role. It may be different. And I always tell athletes, man, your role is just as valuable as each people, albeit all are different. Some are asked to score 30 points, some are asked to score 0. But if that person didn't show up, we have to, as coaches, be able to help them understand, here's what you took from the team, because here's what you give to the team when you're here.
Yeah.
We can explain that, and we can help them be really purposeful with their decisions and their behaviors.
And then there's this whole other arena we can get into there of contentment. Like contentment has you had mentioned earlier that humility has kind of a negative thing. I think contentment does too.
100%.
Contentment doesn't mean that you are giving up anything or that you're still not working towards something. To me, contentment means this is the role that I've been given and I'm going to maximize it. I am okay in this role. But then what am I going to do if I have aspirations? I'm going to work like heck to increase that at some point. I think that's another arena we can get into with these kids that, well, I don't want that role, coach, of I want to be more like this. I get that. This is what's needed, and be okay with that. But then working, that's that whole star in your role thing that I don't really care for that term, because I think a lot of people use that examples of Dennis Rodman, Patrick Beverly in basketball. Look how they're a star. They're millionaires and they're NBA players. In college, they scored. In high school, they were studs. So don't use that. Anyway, sorry, I got off on a tangent. Sorry.
No. I think what you're getting at is that people think that contentment and complacency are synonymous.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think the difference is that contentment means I am exactly where I am for a specific reason, and I will maximize where I am, but I'm not satisfied for where I'm going. I still have aspirations of where I'm going, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to be the best person here that I can be. Complacency means I don't care to move on. I'm here. And when you're complacent, you're not maximizing that role. The two are completely different. And this is a side note in terms of us as adults. I think we are terrible at being content.
Yeah.
We think that the next promotion, the next title, the next house, then those things are going to make and we celebrate that in our society, right? The guy who's been the assistant for too long, what's going on with him? Maybe he is maximizing that role, and maybe God has him in that role to impact people. That doesn't come with a lot of people looking at him in celebration. But I think that we get far too caught up in our culture of celebrating these promotions. And it's not, again, there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be more. But I think we sometimes look at somebody who is content in their spot. And a side note, my dad is a coach, been a coach for years and years. And he had a really difficult time with me being in performance coach early on because he didn't understand how you could get promoted. What are your titles? He said. You're the same as the guy who started there, and you've been there for 10 years, but there's no, at PC, there is no, you're the head coach now. We are all the same now.
Yeah.
We have different value and different roles that we bring, but I am so content with where I'm at performance course because I'm not satisfied. I want to continue to grow our company. I want to continue to be more successful, quote unquote, but I'm so content in exactly the role that I don't need a title. I don't need a promotion because I know that the role I have is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so I love that you mentioned that because that's a big passion of mine is those two things and kind of deconstructing the negativity behind being content, especially in the coaching profession.
Yeah. And I think it's cool. If anybody that does listen or watch this is the two guys on here that are highly competitive and motivated. But I think I'm right in the same wheelhouse as you. I am thankful and I'm going to be faithful in this place that I'm at right now that God's put me. And man, that's that contentment piece. I'm telling you, about probably 3 or 4 years ago, I wasn't there.
Let me jump in real quick. And how I can prove that? I remember, and I'm not going to use specifics, but I remember a few years back, maybe 4 or 5, we have lots of coaches that trust us to say, we have a role in our school. Do you have anybody that you trust to help come fill it? And one was a head basketball coach at a major 6A school in this state. And I called you about it. I said, Coach, someone's looking. They basically told us, you can fill the spot. We trust you. And I told one of our guys, I got a guy. I called you and I said, the role is yours if you want it. You told me, Coach, that would be cool. And there may be some time in my younger career where I'd have jumped at that. But I love where I'm at and what God's doing with me right here. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's contentment, right? You
Yeah.
had a chance to go to what the world would look like as a bigger role, but you knew I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. You modeled exactly what you're just saying. And I just thought of that. It's such a cool thing.
Thanks, man. It's hard though. So I don't want to ever act like you and I are better because social media, that's one of the toughest things about it, not just from a player's perspective now, but as a parent's perspective, from a coaching perspective, because you see the success that in worldly standards is, man, what we should all be. You see other kids and other families so tight and knit, and they don't seem to have the aches and pains and everything that I feel. And but it is that idea of being okay and thankful for where you're at, but hard to get there.
100%.
How do you build confidence in players?
I think we touched on my answer already. And number one, I think that my answer is going to kind of go back to the role I mentioned earlier. But beyond that, the first thing we can do is show them a progression that they are on. You started here, look where you are now. One of the most impactful things I do is I love training middle school kids. And I'll take a scrawny sixth grader who is 95 pounds soaking wet. And when he walks in that weight room, he's shy, or she. They don't want to be seeing what they're lifting because over here, this guy's lifting twice as much. And I love showing them, maybe they weren't doing a movement pattern right, and they did it body weight. Then they did it with bar. This guy's doing way more than that. But when I see them accomplish a progression task, I go over there and I celebrate it like they just won the lottery. Oh my gosh, let's go. And then they're thinking, whoa, man, I did something. I worked hard and it resulted in something that I can see that he sees. So I think celebrating improvement, albeit could be small, but also pointing it out. Hey, you used to shoot this. Now you're shooting this one. You know the difference? That's because you've been in the gym shooting. Hey, look at that move. Let me show you a video from 6 weeks ago. Look at the difference. Those are so powerful. And I'm going to be honest, sometimes it's very small. It's not much improvement, but I'm going to grasp at any opportunity to celebrate an athlete and help him realize, I notice you. I know we all as humans, we crave to be noticed and valued. And so if you as a coach can give value and noticing and then prove that by giving them a specific example, it's easy to say, I notice you. But it's hard to dispute if you say, I noticed you 2 weeks ago, you did this, and now you do this. They say, well, not only am I noticed, but he really did notice me because he saw that. And I'm one of the 300 in this room, and he saw me. So I think, number one, the confidence would be showing them their improvement and then celebrating it so that they can be more excited in the process. And that goes back to understanding purpose.
And that might help them too, because I think part of I don't believe that we can, if there's no confidence there, I don't believe we can just give it. I think confidence has to come from a place of they know they've prepared, they put in the work, and then what they think about all day. But I do believe as coaches, we can help protect their confidence. So when part of protecting it is that when they start to, let's say they grow and they get better, but they start to compare still of where other guys are, because other guys are still growing. If they started out behind and both of you grow at the same rate, you're still behind. But that's where we come behind and say, listen, I know you're looking at others. Don't worry about that. Remember where you started. Like you've really improved. Like just this kid, Grant, I just think about it. He became a good varsity player, but where he started at as a freshman, I mean, first day at Faith, because we do a lot of shooting, he couldn't even hit the rim from the free throw line, and that's not an exaggeration. And I'm telling him that you're going to shoot threes soon. You're going to be a three-point shooter. To see him grow. But then I saw times where he would still be beating himself up because even though he's gotten better, he's still light years away. And that's where we got to come in and help protect their confidence a little bit more.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And confidence is one of the number one transferable traits of the weight room, right? When you get stronger, you just feel more confident. But I think this is, like you mentioned, protecting their confidence. People are confident, going back to the role, people are confident where they know they're valuable, right? And so the more we assign their value and we reinforce or protect their confidence by showing them progression, then you have gotten better. The process is working for you. What if you keep going? What if you go harder? Now I know not only am I confident but I'm more confident to come back the next day because I realize, man, I'm in control of some of this improvement. And when you start to feel like you can get better, the more, and you know the plan, it's so much easier to buy in and say, I can't wait to show up and do it. So yes, yeah. I think that, along with, again, reinforcing the role that I mentioned, when you know your value, it's hard to not be confident. And if you don't know your value, you're going to struggle in those areas with how you show up and what you do, right? Because if you don't really know why you're there to begin with, and it all goes back to that purpose.
What was did you have a second thing with confidence? I cut you off after the first one.
Okay, yeah, no. The second thing was just kind of reinforcing the role, right? So the first thing is going to be show progressions of improvement, remind them what's unique to them, where they've come. And then second would be reinforcing their value and their role, because if they don't feel valuable, then they're not going to feel like they're needed. And the more we can give them that value, and I know it's similar to the answer, but the answer is the answer. It is that if you feel valuable and needed, you're confident because you know you bring something no one else can.
Yeah.
And that's about us as humans. That's why diversity is so important.
I'm pretty confident in developing either a shooting workout or a skills workout for players. I feel like I can take them through a good progression that over time will lead to this, this, and this. I'm not as confident in the weight room. And I would imagine there's a ton of high school coaches that feel the same way, but maybe they don't have the resources or the backing of an athletic director to bring in someone like PC. So if you could just take us a little bit into the thinking behind a weekly split. And I understand too, there's a whole other dynamic of time of year. Are we in season, out of season? So out of season, because right now when we're talking, it's April 13th, springtime for basketball. What should a weekly split look like for training players?
Yeah, that question could be a podcast in and of itself.
Do it in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes.
I'll try to condense it. I think the biggest thing, let's just use the example you just gave, is that a person that maybe doesn't have a lot of resources, and you're looking at all the things you could choose. Number one, find a few things that you can coach really well. I will say that a great program run poorly is not as good as a bad program run excellently, right? If I give this curated program with all these beautiful movements that you would see the NBA players do, but I can't coach it, that's going to be a poor program. But if I have 3 movements that if you were to come in, nothing would impress you. It is the basic of the basic, but I can coach the dog out of that. That's a better program. So as you think about the layering movements, stick to things that you believe in, you find purpose in, and that you feel like you can coach. And everyone can coach a few of these basic movements. The second thing would be brilliant at the basics, okay? It is boring sometimes for me to come tell a kid, we're going to squat again. We're going to reverse lunge again. We're going to press again. We're going to pull again. And guess what? Next week, I'm not going to put you on a Bosu ball, cover your eyes, and start throwing tennis balls at you. And that's not a knock against that training, but that's not what we're going to do. It's not what I'm good at. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in its improvement quality. I'm not saying anything about it, but I'm not going to coach it. It's not going to be in my program. We're going to be really, really good at movement patterns and about things that are going to make us holistically better as an athlete. So when you think about in terms of what do I choose, let's think general. That's the things to think about. Be brilliant at the basics and program things that you can coach really well. From then on, we use what we call a tier system, and it's basically a way to have a total body lift 3 to 4 days out of the week, and not to split and go upper body, lower body. Is that valuable? Sure, there are values to that, but the truth is that you're never splitting movements when you play the sport that you play, whatever sport that it is. So we want to weave in athleticism development into every workout that we were hitting multiple parts of our body. So a tier system simply means we have an emphasis that day, right? And just to keep it really basic, there'll be a total, a lower, and an upper movement every day. But let's say it's a 3-day workout, they're going to oscillate between which one is the emphasis. A total body emphasis. Maybe we're going to deadlift that day. We're still going to have a lower body movement, but maybe it's not our back squat. Maybe it's a single leg squat that day. And then the upper body, okay, because it's the third one, that'd be the lower on the minority prop. So what are you going to do? Maybe it's not your bench press. Maybe it's not your incline press, but maybe it's a single push-up or a single arm bench press, something that's a little lower on the list. It's less taxing, and we can do it with that deadlift, with that split squat. So now take it away to make a bank of movements. And essentially, if you pick 5 movements in total, lower, and upper categories, and you rank them from 1 to 5, all you would have to do to make a 3-day program is say, day 1 is total, lower, upper, total, upper, TLUTL. Number 2, switch it. Now, L, lower is the top, lower, upper, what's the next? Back to total, lower, upper, total, lower, upper. There's 5 movements. And then guess what day 3 is? Upper, total, lower, upper, total. So as you've created 5 exercise movements. And if you just say, where's the highest ranking T total? That's T1. And you got a 5-piece line. Where's T2, T3, T4, and T5? You make a bank, deadlift, jumping, power clean, whatever your most 5 are, and you rank them and you put them in assignment to T 1 through 5. L, okay, back squat number 1, front squat number 2. We want to put some single leg stuff, so split squat. Now your L's are ranked, L through 5, 1 through 5, right in that system you just created. Upper's no different. And then you kind of layer that with a posterior chain movement, RDL, something like the backside, and then some posterior shoulders. The backside's very rarely trained. But if you did a 5-box total lower and upper movements, added posterior chain and posterior shoulder, you've got a 3-day program that is tailored to total body training as well as emphasis in taxation in order, an exercise order that goes from toughest to most or least difficult, right? So that's an easy way to look at how do I pick those movements. Now, going back to point number 1, well, if I'm ranking 5 movements, I better be able to coach them really well.
Yeah.
So if I can't coach power clean, guess what? Take it out. And if someone comes in your building and says, you're not power cleaning, this is wrong, and they don't understand context, and they're irrelevant to that. That voice is irrelevant, because I think a lot of us feel if we're not doing this, then we're going behind. Well, if you can't coach it, if you don't feel confident in it, take it out. There are other ways to develop power, et cetera. And so what should your split look like? It should look like movements that are going to mimic what you're doing on the floor, that you can coach really well, that's layered in terms of taxation that goes from most to least, and that has a litany of different movements that are going to work the entire body.
I'm glad I have it recorded. That's good. So we have 4 days. What would that, so you had the 3 that you had in there. What adjustments would you make? Can you do 4 total body workouts throughout the week and not?
100,
okay.
100%. It's kind of it's off the tier system a little bit, but you still use your same bank. How you would typically do it is we're going to have an Olympic variation movement or our power movement number 1 every day on the 4 days. Okay. You're going to have a power movement. Then you're going to have your emphasis movement. Okay. So those 4 days, let's just give an example. Like day 1 would be front squat. Day 2 would be bench. Day 3 would be back squat. And day 4 would be deadlift. Those are our emphasis movements on those days. So I have Olympic power. I'm always going to start with that because it's the most taxing. And whenever we power, when we jump, we do something powerful, we sprint, we want to prioritize that as number 1 because it takes the most central nervous system productivity and alignment and alertness to be good at it. So we don't want to do it with fatigue if we can prevent that. Now, you can have practice before. You have situations naturally you can't prevent that. So we want to do those without fatigue. So how a 4-day would look is just, let's go Olympic power movement number 1. Emphasis for your day, okay? And I just gave a 4-day example of emphasis: front squat, bench press, back squat, and then deadlift. Then let's have an upper push. Let's have a lower pull, an upper pull, and let's oscillate between biceps and shoulders, posterior chain. Biceps, shoulders, posterior chain. So now you have, and an upper pull would be, you start really layering things when you think in terms of double leg, single leg, double arm, single arm, and then angles, right? Vertical versus horizontal. So as you're layering in your pushes, you're just saying, if I'm doing a horizontal pull on day 1, then when I come back on day 3 and have that upper pull, that would be another horizontal, but on day 2 and day 4, let's pull vertically. Well, coach, I can't pull 4 days in a row. Absolutely you can. If one's horizontal and the next one's vertical, if I'm pressing, if one's horizontal and the next one's vertical, if one is 2 arms and the next is 1 arm, you can do similar movements all 4 days, but they're layered and now they're hitting multiple angles, multiple ranges of motion. And now you're creating this system that trains your body the way that you would play, right? You don't just play linearly. You play rotationally. So the way you would layer those would be just like I said, Olympic power movements, emphasis, upper pull, upper push, lower pull, upper pull, upper pull, and then back to your biceps and shoulders on day 1, biceps and shoulders on day 3, posterior chain, backside work on day 2 and day 4, and now you can fill in the blank, and you can still rank those and say, priority movements are here. I'm going to put my more taxing movements at the top, and I'm going to slowly work on the supplemental movements at the bottom. But now I've got a 4-day plan that hits multiple angles, both 2 legs and 1 leg, 1 arm, 2 arms, and it's making me train the total body all 4 days.
I think a lot I love the fact that you chose the nutrition advice piece because, again, I think it's an area where a lot of coaches don't know. And the way you know that coaches don't know is how their nutrition is. Mine changes all the time from things that I'm trying, things that work, whatever. I have my thicker times of the year where I'm eating tons of sugar, and then leaner when
it's bulking season.
Yeah. So when you're talking with athletes, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, what's some nutrition advice you'd give them?
The best advice is the first point that we always say in our company, in our course. You can't out train a bad diet. And it's really important for kids to understand that their athletic development and training, it's a difficult thing to hear this to kids that just love to grind. It's about 40 to 50% of the puzzle. And you can train and you can be the best things we're talking about. And if you don't sleep, hydrate, and eat right, all the work that you're doing is going to be minimized and not used the most efficiently. And I always say to the kids, like, the hardest part is the work that you're doing, right? You're already doing the hard part. So how can we navigate through understanding that you can't out-train a bad diet? The first, we have a kind of an acronym that we use at PC called PRODUCE. And each one stands for something. And I'll run through it real quick. But number one, we do protein with every meal, understanding that protein controls inflammation. It's for muscle recovery. It's for muscle regeneration. It's integral to what we do, to how we survive. It's the number one thing you're going to need, protein. R would be eat the rainbow. Try to find, and not Skittles, but trying to find fruits and vegetables in every single meal. O, we use omega-3 and omega-6, which are healthy versions of fat. Fat gets a bad rap, but there are two versions of fat, right? There's saturated and unsaturated, and we don't want to eat saturated fat like butter and cheese and a lot of that things that kind of sit in our system, and our body doesn't really know how to process it. So it just kind of stores it for later. But we want to eat unsaturated fat because fat not only has insulation storages for our key body parts or internal organs, but it also is the energy source when we're resting. So right now, our body is working off of our fat storages. And people think that, you're burning fat. Well, not the bad kind. It's the good kind that's running this engine. Well, people think, well, let's say I just don't eat that, then it'll bypass that and start working off my carbs. Well, the problem for athletes is that your carb source of energy is number one when you're in exercise. So we don't want those reserves depleted when I'm resting, because then your body's working off your protein. And I'm going to tell you something. That's when you're in what's called a catabolic state, meaning your body is literally breaking itself down in order to fuel. You never want to be there for an athlete. So healthy fat's really important. Some good examples would be nuts, all the different kind of nuts, almonds, cashews, good avocados are great examples. Some low-fat peanut butter that has like the healthy version of fat. That's a good example. So there's a lot, and then fish oil. A lot of good ways to get healthy fat, but that's a huge piece. D would be drink water. Okay, I can't express to you the amount of regression your body takes with just even the slightest dips in dehydration or in hydration levels. There's so much sport performance that suffers when we're dehydrated. Your body just doesn't work maximally, and we could go into that for another podcast. But C would be carbohydrate timing. Okay, so PRODUC, carbohydrate timing. Carbohydrates, healthy grains, whole grains, those things are necessary for our energy stores when we work out. We want those things full. And so timing would be when we wake up, after we work out, huge times to get some good carbohydrates. And why? Because we've been sleeping for 8 hours, hopefully, and we haven't eaten anything. So we have to restart. And I always blow kids' minds when I tell them that breakfast means breaking the fast, because you fasted for 8 hours. That's what breakfast means. So you have to break that fast and fill those carb tanks so I can have that energy source when I go work out. And then after workout, because I just use all of it like a car running on gas. My gas is now at E, so I need to put those carbohydrates back in there. And so that's carbohydrate timing. And then E would be eliminate junk. We all know what junk is. Do your best to try to eliminate that and save a day. I hate the word cheat day because it's just so commonly overused, but find time where you can experience joy with eating. We should eat pizza. We should eat donuts. Those things are great. I'm not here to tell you never to do that because it's not sustainable. Just limit the amount that you do that to a couple of times that you're going to say, I'm going to celebrate here and here, but I'm not going to do that every single day. So that's how we kind of navigate nutrition, is that PRODUCE acronym.
See, my problem with the cheat day is it normally becomes a cheat weekend, and then it's a cheat 3 or 4 days. And all of a sudden, is this a cheat week that I'm on?
Cheat month. I just kept going. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I think it's hard to eat well and just think in terms of this is how I eat forever. Because to me, and I'm a person I like to think I'm healthy and in shape, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm on the weekends. I'm gonna go hard. I'm gonna be good at my cheat days. I'm gonna eat
right.
a lot of food.
If you're gonna do it wrong, do it right.
100%. So it's important to have that in there. But yeah, those are some things to think about in terms of how you're eating. And I always caution people to say, we want to eat real food, right? We want to eat real food. We want to shop the outsides of the grocery stores, what people always say, right? But I don't want to tell young athletes, because we do it ourselves. We're on the go. We grab something. And a lot of times we tell, don't do that, pack everything. We don't do that.
Yeah.
That's unrealistic to ask a 16-year-old kid to make 5 chicken breasts from the morning on and eat that. But you can't do it.
Right.
So I always remind them, hey, if you're going to go to McDonald's, if you're going to go to Cane's or Chick-fil-A, just try to choose grilled over breaded. Try to stay away from the fries and maybe see if you can get a fruit side. You can go to these places and find just different healthier choices at those places. So I never want to tell a 16-year-old kid, hey, you never can eat out. You can't go to McDonald's. Well, sometimes you don't have enough money to go anywhere else, and the alternative would be not eating.
Yeah, do the best that you can at those places. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Supplements just get a bad rap, and people, when they hear that term, especially younger people hear that term, they automatically go to the dark side of that genre or that place. But I'm coming from more of a background of, when I was at the Colony, Coach Thomas sold Advocare products to his own players, which is illegal now. But it's kind of funny. I mean, what a great business model. I've got these 15 to 20 players that will basically do anything I say, and I'm going to sell them products. But I mean, so I was taking POS2.
Consumer market,
yeah, it's brilliant. I was taking POS2, my sophomore, junior, senior years that had creatine in it and all this stuff. So like at the Colony, we were a swole basketball team, and we did lift hard, but we were also supplementing. I've never had an issue with it, but I've felt as I've done this longer, the unwillingness for coaches to talk about it, or in myself. What are is that something we should be even talking about? What are some supplements? Because, I guess obviously the protein shakes, but anything else that players could be taking right now that isn't harmful and, maybe necessary?
I think to answer this question, I always preface this. Supplement means in addition to. Until you feel like you have proper nutrition habits where you're getting the amount of protein that you need, the amount of carbohydrates that you need, there is no supplement to that. And they are not going to get you where you need to go. And they will get you where you need to go a lot slower than a healthy diet like we just mentioned. So the number one thing to think about is, are you someone that's eligible for supplements because you have a well-rounded nutrition system and you're eating whole foods and real foods? Until you can do that, think of terms in supplement meaning in addition to. If there's nothing to add to, then there is no supplement.
So, Coach, you're saying like that. I'm a kid. I'm a high school player, and I eat cookies at lunch. But I've got this a tub of whey protein in my locker. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. That's the thought process. If I just get on creatine, if I can take these branched chain amino acids, but I eat Skittles and Cheetos and Coke all day, then you're getting a negative return. And what's happening is you're trying to supplement something that's not there, and you're investing in the wrong market, because if you're thinking in terms of efficiency, your body's going to respond much better to natural foods. And then supplements come along and say, how can I get that extra 5%? But if the supplement is the 95%, you're going to not only have a poor sport performance return, but you're actually going to suffer in terms of those things not being relegated how they should, because there's not proper nutrition to begin with. So that'd be number one. I think the foundation of supplements is to say that, to make sure kids know, do not try that. Don't ask for those until you've got a solid nutrition system in place. But
that's a good point.
You mentioned whey protein, and protein is a great supplement, but we need to make sure that we know that that supplemental protein can't replace the meat sources that you need. And it's, sometimes we talk about vegans and protein. I'm just here to tell you that there is no, take this for what you will. I'm not here to make a stance. I'm just telling you there is no substitute for animal sources, and what that does for your body. There's no substitute. So that's important. Protein shakes are great. Whey protein is fine. Do your best to find one that's an isolate. That means that as little added as possible, and the sugar and the carb sources are relatively low, even though if you're having trouble getting in good carbs, then maybe that could be something that you do add. But the supplements are going to, again, depend on your diet. Creatine is a great system or a great supplement to use. I'm going to explain it real quickly. Creatine is the fuel source for adenine triphosphate, or ADP. Okay, ATP is the fuel for the energy system. Okay, the phosphagen energy system, or the system that is fast acting, explosive, but only is there for 5 to 6 seconds. It's when you're on defense and you got to slide like heck to get to the sideline, put your foot on there because you're playing, some sort of trap, and then or you're going down the floor and you're trying to make it past this guy to make that layup. That little reserve that you have, that is your phosphagen system, and the gasoline for that is creatine. So creatine is naturally produced in your body. It's important to understand that having more of it means that maybe my gas reserve of that phosphagen tank can be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
In terms of how that helps us, if we're not working out at the highest level we can, if we're not practicing the high end, creatine is just making you pee more. It's not helping you in any other way except hydrating you and just getting through your system. What it's going to do is maximize your intent. I'm a guy who's squeezing out the last rep of 255 on bench press. Maybe that creatine is going to allow me to break that muscle fiber down a little bit more and finish that rep, and then I can replete it with protein back. So it's important to understand what creatine is before you choose to use it. It's also important to cycle it, because if I give my body something over time, we know the body does what? It says, I'm efficient. If you're giving me this, I'm not going to make it myself.
Yeah.
So we want to remind our body, we're just adding to the reserve, but we still want you to make it yourself. So creatine is great to use in cycles, 6 to 8 weeks. And then I usually cycle it with branched chain amino acids. And that's just the building blocks of protein. We kind of all learning in science class. But those branched chain amino acids are helping the protein synthesis, meaning it's helping my muscles eat the protein and then put it into action, to make it simple. So 8 weeks of creatine, and I want to take that prior to a hard workout, and then good nutrition habits, and then get off the creatine, go to branched chain amino acids, help that protein synthesize, and then you can cycle those like that. And the last supplement, healthy fat can be supplemented in fish oil pills, and then vitamins. Making sure you're having good vitamin nutrients where you're taking a multivitamin every single day. I would say 4 supplements that you could probably take forever. Creatine cycle with branched chain amino acids, as long as you keep working out.
Sure.
And then fish oil or some sort of healthy fat, because we don't get a lot of that. I mean, we sometimes suffer finding good places to get that. And then a multivitamin. Those are great ways to start in the supplement source.
The BCAAs is the one. I'm on board with everything that you're saying, because I think creatine and all that stuff, it's the most researched supplement out there. So anybody that says it's dangerous, I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot there. I mean, anything abused, anything Tylenol abused is bad. But BCAAs, tell me a little bit more of the value, because there's some of the things that I feel like, this is just, I hate when people, I've researched, I've read, I don't know, a few things I've seen that our bodies can't use them that well, or that it is a little bit of a waste of money. But just want to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think number one, creating a better channel for your body to utilize the protein that you're in is worth it enough. Okay, so if I give you no other value except to help you understand that protein synthesis happens at a higher rate when branched chain amino acids are in excess in your body, that would be a reason enough. So let's just focus on that for a second. the art of getting stronger is giving your body a stimulus that is unused to. Your body then has muscle tissue tears, micro tears. It takes nutrients. It puts those muscle tissues back in your body. And remember, we talked about it wanting to stay in the middle. It says, I don't want to get broken down again. So in order to make myself not, here's the percent I was taxed. So I'm going to be this much stronger because I was taxed that much. And if you tax me like that again, I won't have any tears. So then what do we do as strength coaches? We program for the manipulation of the volume and intensity so that I now tax you here. Micro tears happen. We then resource with food, and that progression leads to strength. It leads to speed. All of those things are muscle tissue adaptation. So if you're telling me that the weight room can help with muscle tissue adaptation because it's tearing microfibers and helping them build back, and I'm here to tell you protein synthesis and helping that protein synthesize at a higher rate of efficiency is going to be extremely valuable to helping you take the improvement steps necessary to be great and utilize that workout at its highest level of efficiency.
That makes sense. You sold me. I love it. I love having it in my water. I mean, even if when I used to drink the big old jug, it was nice to have something that wasn't just water tasting, but no, that makes complete sense. Yeah. I got a question.
You have to take it? Like, no. I'm not sitting here
right.
the door down. I'm just saying you said some supplements that I think I would suggest.
Yeah.
And again, if you're doing all the things right nutritionally, you may not need to add anything. But if you aren't, supplements are a great way to fill in some of those gaps. And like, again, with vitamins and with some healthy fat and with some helps for your protein. But if you're having a great, well-balanced diet, all that's doing is just helping maximize what you're already doing well.
Yeah. And the name supplement, you're right on the money. It is not taking the place of, it's adding to. And you got it. All right. What's one thing you would do differently if you could start over in training or in coaching? Sorry.
Well, it's going to be interesting because the things that I would change are all the things that I did when I was working for you.
We'll make sure that Wes Watson doesn't know.
Yeah, don't let it watch this. No, I think what I would say two main things that when I picked that question, I wanted to reinforce. Number one, I would challenge myself to realize, number one would be that your ego would be the number one way to exit off of success's highway. And early on, I told you about my confidence and the way I feel about what I've been created. But I think early on, my confidence wasn't so much within my role as it was in arrogance of I am the man. And I think early on that it stifled my personal growth as a coach. It stifled my growth as in terms of knowledge because I already was the best strength coach that ever existed. So why would I need to increase my improvement? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
As a young coach, my kind of career has went like this. I know everything and no one will tell me different, to I don't know anything. And how am I going to learn? To I've got a 95% foundation of things that I know and I'm believing wholeheartedly, but I'm chasing 5% of how I can add to that all the time. And that sort of progression, if I could go back and tell myself, man, you're making this about you a whole lot. Your ego is making it so you driven that you don't think there's areas for you to improve. And that stifled my growth for years until I finally had that growth mindset that I teach my players is that I need to be better every day too. If you think you're the best, there's no room for improvement. I don't think that I don't ever want to take away the confidence that I have because I know that makes me good at what I do, but I also anchor that to understanding that I have more to learn. So that'd be number one. And then number two, from kind of an actual programming standpoint, that would be more of a mentality and character standpoint. From a programming standpoint, the biggest thing I've learned and I would change going back would be that sometimes more work just is more work. And that when we're not efficient with what we're doing, it's not really translating into benefit. And I would run the dog out of our players because I wanted them to be the toughest players of all time. Now, while I do see value in working hard, I see value in that. I also want to make sure I'm taking into account their sleep, their recovery, helping them not break down to the point where we can't get them back tomorrow and helping them be better the next day. They're so doggone broken down today that they're finished for the rest of 2 weeks before they recover. So I think there were times when I would feel the need to say, here's our program. I believe in it. I'm going to add 5 more things just so they know that when they leave here, they're going to, that was my mentality.
Yeah.
And albeit I'm not willing to say, remove that completely. I can't say that because I don't believe in that. I believe there are times where you want to push them and help them understand that they can break past those limits, but you got to do it in a context that always protects them for tomorrow so they can come back and give you enough. And so I think it's been said really in a way that I really love is that if I challenge myself too much, I'll give up because it's too difficult. If I challenge myself too little, then it's not fun and I get bored. But if I challenge myself ever so slightly each day, I keep coming back for more because number one, I can complete it. And number two, I see the growth and the results of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So those are 2 areas that I would love to go back and do again. But I will say that's what helped me learn in the mindset that I have now. So it wasn't necessary to be there.
Now I know you, and I feel like I have a good handle on who you are. But with the speed round, I'll know you even better.
Let's
you
go.
Ready?
Yeah.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
For high school basketball, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock, 100%.
I thought so. Knowing you and yeah, texting or talking?
Talking.
Interesting. Yeah, can't stand it. Yeah, okay. A lot of people say depends on who it is. Unfortunately, our players just seem to be more receptive to that. But you'd rather talk to them.
I don't want to have a back and forth for 20 minutes that could be had in 5 minutes, and I could have understood a whole lot more. And I'm waiting on responses. Let's call, let's talk, and then let's move on. Now that doesn't mean I want a casual text, but I
sure.
want much conversation.
That makes sense. Favorite holiday?
Christmas, easy. Spend the time with my 4 brothers, family.
Nice. Invisibility or super strength?
Super strength.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Great question. Probably like if you're thinking, I know Game of Thrones doesn't really exist in an actual time frame, but I would love the thing is I don't really like the medieval time, but I would like to see how I would respond to that sort of life where you got to figure it out yourself and it's not handed to you. You don't go to the grocery store, because I don't know that I would do well, but I would like to find out.
I think you do pretty well. My wife, if she was sitting here, and she would know that I would struggle because I can't hunt, I can't fix things. If basketball's not in some way a part of it, I'm pretty much useless. So
you can't go back too far. For you.
Yeah, before James Naismith, I'm out.
Yeah.
Your favorite place to travel?
Beach.
Nice.
Give me a beach. Me and my wife, we like to just chill, sit. I do a lot of going. So when I vacation, I just want to sit and chill.
Because we're similar in age, what's your favorite childhood TV show?
Well, the beauty of my parents is they forced our creative minds by not letting us watch a whole lot of TV. But when I was watching shows, man, it's even hard to even come up with one. But we will like. Have you ever heard of Wishbone? PBS, man, Wishbone. This dog.
Okay.
When I was a kid, that was like a highlight. When mom would be like, "You can watch show for 30 minutes today." 30 minutes today, man. My kids on. Wishbone, baby, let's go.
I would have never known that before today. 2 more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
So prior to kids, I never drank coffee before in my life, so 0. With kids, it's like a nice treat. I will tell you, this energy level is high. Yeah. On coffee, it's too much. It's like I can't even control myself. So I would say 1 or 2 a week max, but probably not by the day.
Nice. Last one, Godfather or Star Wars?
Never seen Godfather, so Star Wars by default.
Favorite movie?
Total?
Yeah. If you had to choose one. Oh, yeah.
The Patriot? I could watch that 100 times and watch the story and just when the family comes back to him at the end of the beaches, he's been fighting. I still cry.
That moment will get you. Daughter when she says it for the first time.
She hadn't talked. She says, "Daddy." She runs to him.
Dude, I'm thinking about quit it. Let's move on.
I have children right now. I didn't even have kids the last time I watched that. Right. That would take me. That would take me to that.
Well, hey, man. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. And knowing you for a long time, I don't take this in a weird way. I'm just really proud of you. It's been so much fun to see just you grow and mature, but also, become a family man and really embrace your faith in a way that you have. And just so excited to see what you do in the future, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And I know it's really means a lot when I know you've seen me in that first year that I was in this role, and you and Wes Watson, at the time really let me be in the locker room and be there in the office. And I learned so much from you guys on how to be a coach and how to love your players and and we would have back and forth about philosophy and about things in those moments. And I learned a lot. So when you say you're proud of me and you've seen progression, man, we talk about kids and the value that we show. We see those progressions, but just as adults, someone recognizing growth within you helps you remind you that you're doing what you should be doing, because it's easy to look at yourself every day and say, I look the same, I feel the same, I act the same. I know I'm growing a little bit, but I can't really tell when someone else tells me. It means a lot. So I really appreciate that, man.
If coaches never heard of PC before, performance course, or have, but now are even more interested in it, what's a great way for them to get plugged in?
Two ways. Number one, you could email info@performancecourse.com. And that's kind of an email that goes to a lot of us that we answer and respond to. But another way would be to follow us on social media, at PC Now at the time on Twitter, and then Performance Course on Instagram. And then if you follow me or know me on social media or Twitter, @Baca Nation is my Twitter. And then just message me. Just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested. My email is sbaca@performancecourse.com. Anyway, you can just say, hey, here's kind of what we're thinking. Can you have a conversation? Because again, but I'll take that email or that direct message or whatever it is I'll give you my number and I want to have a conversation with you, see what the needs that you have, help you understand how we did them. So just reaching out to me personally or to us as a company and letting us set up a time we can talk and listen to you, then that's probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Yeah, coaches, I mean it when I say that there's been a few decisions as a coach that I've made that have really impacted my program. One was running and gunning and getting away from running plays, but helping players to make plays, opening my mind with individual skill work. That's helped a lot too. And then right up there has been bringing in Performance Course, taking myself out as the strength coach of our program, but not just their development as athletes, but the culture piece where I feel like we have a strong culture. It just throws gasoline on it. And so I mean it. If you guys, if you're not, if you haven't looked into Performance Course, do that. And this is probably the first sales pitch I think I've ever made in an episode, but it's something I really do believe in. But man, Coach, thank you again. You're one of the best out there.
I appreciate it, man. Same back to you.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.